Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time to continue on with the Football Alphabet series. For those of you who haven't seen an episode of this series before, I take a look at various clubs and players whose names and surnames respectively begin with a particular letter of the alphabet. In this episode, we're going to take a look at 5 of the best clubs whose names begin with H and give brief-ish profiles on them. And if you want to check out any of the other episodes in this series that I have made thus far, there is a playlist link that you can either check out down in the description or on the end card of this video. And whilst you're there, if you're going to enjoy this video, please don't forget, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And without any further ado, here is my Hall of Fame of some of the best clubs whose names begin with H. Number 1. Hamburg. A former Bundesliga dinosaur kickstarts this video in the form of Hamburger SV, more commonly known as just Hamburg, but it's fair to say the club has fallen on harder times in recent years. They can trace their origins back to an 1887 merger of 2 clubs which formed SC Germania Hamburg, although they themselves would merge with 2 other clubs to form Hamburger SV in 1919, owing to financial difficulties at each of the respective teams following World War I's conclusion. Hamburg's first national final would arrive just 3 years later against then giants Nuremberg, but after 3 hours and 10 minutes of stalemate, the game was abandoned due to darkness. The rematch saw Nuremberg reduced to 7 players, but the referee wrongly abandoned the game and awarded the victory to Hamburg. And although the DFB agreed that they should win the match, they asked Hamburg to reject the trophy, which they reluctantly accepted, making the 1921-22 season the only completed season in German football history without a league winner. No matter, they returned to the final the next year and won it, adding a second national title to their trophy cabinet in 1928. After World War II, they were the winners of the only 2 football seasons in the British zone of West Germany whilst it was still in place, and from 1947 to 1963 they won their regional Oberliga every single year, barring one. Inspired by their record goalscorer Uwe Seeler, who bagged 490 goals for the club but sadly passed away last week at the age of 87, they finally picked up their 3rd national title in 1960 and were founding members of the Bundesliga upon its creation in 1963. Their golden age would last from the mid-1970s until the mid-1980s, when they won 3 Bundesligas, 2 DFB Pokals and a European Cup Winners' Cup. To top it all off, they became the 2nd German team after Bayern Munich to lift the European Cup following a 1-0 win over Juventus in 1983. However, they haven't won a single major trophy since the DFB Pokal success in 1987, but following FC Köln's relegation from the Bundesliga in 1998, they became the last team at the time to have played in every single Bundesliga campaign, a record which they dearly cherished. A clock was installed in the stadium to keep track of just how long they had continuously been in the Bundesliga for, and they experienced some success throughout the 2000s, qualifying frequently for the UEFA Cup and having a couple of cracks at the Champions League to boot. However, in the mid-2010s, their fortunes took a turn for the worse, as they became embroiled in the relegation scraps season after season, and it seemed as though it would only be a matter of time before that clock would have to be stopped. Sure enough, after a wretched 2017-18 campaign, the Bundesliga dinosaurs were wiped out following Wolfsburg's final day victory over Köln, which saw Hamburg relegated, and their fans riot. They are yet to return in the 4 years since, with 3 consecutive 4th place finishes and a playoff loss against Hertha BSC Berlin last season, meaning that they are still in the Zweite Bundesliga, as at the time of this recording of course. Notable alumni include former Manchester City captain and current Burnley boss Vincent Kompany, former Fulham manager and supposed cheese lover Felix Magath, 2-time Ballon d'Or winner Kevin Keegan, Spurs legend Rafael van der Vaart, and Spurs' current star, alongside Harry Kane of course, Son Heung-min. Number 2. Huddersfield Town. At first glance, Huddersfield may seem out of place next to Hamburg in a video like this, but their place in English football history is immortalised thanks to one special feat, which has pretty much earned them a place in this video too. They came into being in 1908 and laid out plans to build a 34,000-seater stadium upon admittance into the Football League, which they got in 1910, but high development costs and pitiful attendances led to bankruptcy 2 years later. Good start. Following World War I, they found themselves £25,000 in debt, and their then owner John Hilton Crowther proposed a merger with newly founded Leeds United, But in protest against the statements, supporters donated money to the club in their droves to keep it afloat, and ultimately, Crowell's proposal was dropped. In spite of all the chaos unfurling around them, they reached the FA Cup final in 1920 and were promoted to the First Division for the first time that season, appointing Herbert Chapman as manager in 1921. That would prove to be a wise move, as the revolutionary and forward-thinking manager, who I'll probably cover in the C video of this series, guided the club to an FA Cup success in 1922 and then the First Division title in 1924 and again in 1925. Despite Chapman's departure to Arsenal that year, the Terriers became the first team in English football history to win a hat-trick of league titles, a feat which only Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester United have ever matched in the 96 years since. But it is also their last major trophy to date. They lost 3 more FA Cup finals prior to World War II and suffered relegation for the first time in 1952, and by the mid-1970s they had dropped all the way down to the 4th Division. Over the next 4 decades, they bounced in between the 2nd and 3rd tiers, although following the collapse of ITV Digital in 2003, the club found themselves £20 million in debt and in administration, with players going unpaid for months and an attempted sacking of manager Mick Wadsworth failing because the club couldn't afford the compensation money. After being saved by businessman Ken Davey, they began a slow road to recovery, which included a Football League record of 43 matches unbeaten throughout 2011, whilst in League One. In 2017, they won the Championship playoffs to earn promotion back to the top flight after over 60 years away, despite ending the campaign with a negative goal difference. And against all the odds, they finished in 16th place in the Premier League in 2017-18 and avoided the drop. Second season syndrome bit them hard though, and they became just the second team in Premier League history to be relegated in March after Derby County managed to do so in 2007-08. They've resided in the Championship ever since, but they might have blown their best chance to return to the big time as they lost the playoff final last year to Nottingham Forest. Number 3. Herediano. Taking a trip over to Central America for our next inclusion, Herediano is, I think, the first Costa Rican team to feature in this series. Don't say I don't treat you sometimes. Much like Hamburg, Herediano were formed through a merger of 3 different clubs in 1921, as the region of Heredia wanted a successful football team to back. They immediately became heavyweights in the Costa Rican football scene, pressurising the Costa Rican FA to form a league the very year that they were founded. And as fate would have it, they ended up winning it. They didn't let up either, winning 9 more league titles up until 1937 and going on a few lucrative tours of Jamaica and El Salvador, and in 1932 they even managed to beat the Argentine national team 3-1. Over the course of their 101 years of existence, they have won 29 Primera División titles, the most recent of which coming in the 2021 Apertura, making them the 3rd most successful team in Costa Rican football, behind Saprissa, who have 36, and Alajuelense, who have 30. They've also picked up 10 Costa Rican Cups, albeit none since 1961, and in 2018 they won their first ever continental trophy in the form of the CONCACAF Cup, the equivalent of the Europa League in North and Central America, after a 3-2 aggregate win over Montagua of Honduras. As far as I can tell, the most famous player to have ever played for Herediano is Paulo Wanchal, who started off his career with El Team. And I promise you that is their nickname, before later going on to play for West Ham and Manchester City, becoming the club record signing for the latter team when he moved to Main Road in 2000. Number 4. Hearts. Regrettably, as per my own criteria, I can only include 1 team per country, meaning that one of Hearts or Hibernian in Scotland had to miss out. And in the end, I've given the nod to Hearts, the 4th most successful team in Scotland, behind Celtic, Rangers and Aberdeen. The club's formation date is actually disputed, with some claiming it was in 1873 and others the year after, but the group of friends that formed the club named themselves after the Heart of Midlothian mosaic, which was immortalised in the 1818 Walter Scott novel of the same name. After being suspended for 2 years for fielding professional players in 1885, they won their first 2 Scottish League titles in 1895 and 1896, and half of their 8 overall Scottish Cup successes between 1891 and 1906. However, these levels of success wouldn't last long, as Rangers and Celtic formed their almost exclusive duopoly over the Scottish game, and Hearts basically went trophyless until their 2nd golden age under manager Tommy Walker in the 1950s. Spearheaded by the terrible trio, the nickname given to their forward line of Willy Bold, Jimmy Wardle and Alfie Conn Sr., who scored over 900 goals for the club between them. They lifted their last 2 Scottish First Division titles in 1958 and 1960, as well as 4 Scottish League Cups and a Scottish Cup between 1955 and 1963. Ever since then, just 3 more Scottish Cups have been added to the trophy cabinet, and they haven't finished second in the league since 2006. 2 years prior to that, Lithuanian owner Vladimir Romanov had bought the club, promising a revolution and boldly stating that the club would be debt-free and could eventually win the Champions League. Of course, as is so often the case when owners come in and make such bold promises that they obviously cannot keep, the club ended up being £37 million in debt, never qualified for the Champions League group stages under his ownership, and almost went completely out of business at various points between 2011 and 2014. Local businesswoman Anne Budge stepped in to save the club in May 2014, but by that point they had been relegated from the SPL. Despite an immediate promotion back to the top flight, they are relegated again in the truncated 2019-20 campaign, and in 2021, upon another promotion, Budge transferred ownership of the club to the Foundation of Hearts fan group, making Hearts one of very few fan-owned clubs in the UK. Number 5. Hajduk Split. Our final entrants in this video are Hajduk Split, who seem to be stuck in the perennial status of being Croatia's second best team behind their eternal and fierce rivals, Dinamo Zagreb. They were formed in 1911 by a group of students, and apparently, stuck for ideas as to what to call their new team, they turned to one of their former teachers for inspiration, who gave them the idea of Hajduk, which he said symbolised bravery, friendship, and all that was good with people more generally. He then told them, "Be worthy of that great name." The club became a symbol of pro-Croatian nationalism, hence why their badge has the Croatian coat of arms on it, and an operetta was even composed in their honour in 1926 in celebration of the club's 15th anniversary by Ivo Tejardovic, making them, in all likelihood, the only football club in the world with an operetta in their honour. Their first 2 Yugoslav First League titles came in 1927 and 1929, and 3 more would arrive in the early 1950s, and another 4 came during the 1970s. In all, their tally of 9 league titles prior to Yugoslavia's breakup in 1991, a total which was more than double what Dinamo managed, was bettered only by Red Star and Partizan Belgrade. In 1990, Hajduk fans burned the Yugoslav flag during a game against Partizan Belgrade, an act which saw the match abandoned, and raised the Croatian coat of arms in its place, one of many pro-independence acts across Croatia in 1990 and 1991, which ultimately led them to seceding from Yugoslavia and becoming an autonomous nation. For what it's worth, Hajduk won the final ever Yugoslav Cup in 1991 and are therefore the permanent holders of the trophy, and upon the foundation of the Croatian First League in 1992, they picked up right where they left off. They won 3 out of the first 4 Croatian League championships and then 3 more at the start of the 21st century, but with Dinamo Zagreb establishing a seemingly impenetrable hegemony over the Croatian game ever since 2005, Hajduk have had to settle for second fiddle. 6 second place and 5 third place finishes over the last 16 years are the closest they've ever come to picking up their 7th Croatian League crown, although they do hold a distinction of never having been relegated from either the Yugoslav or Croatian top flights in their entire history. And that just about wraps up today's video looking at 5 of the best clubs whose names begin with the letter H. If you think I missed any out, let me know which ones down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, of course, please don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can ring the notification bell to be reminded whenever I upload a video straight away. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to at Hazzabhajan, and you can check out all of the other episodes in the Football Alphabet series using the playlist link that's on screen about here or so. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you then.